Hey, beautiful, and welcome to the Healthy High Podcast. Here we are ditching the drama, dropping those pounds, and stepping boldly into your next level. I'm your girl, Nurse Coach Smith. I am a health development coach on a mission to help African American women just like you heal, grow, and live fully in your power. I have a master's degree in nursing, and I am super duper passionate about holistic health and wellness. So I like to blend science, soul, and sisterhood to guide you through your health journey. And we do that here unapologetically. Okay? So before we dive in, here's a quick heads up. This podcast is all about education and inspiration, but I'm not a doctor, so it's not medical advice. Be sure to consult your doctor or healthcare provider before you make any, and I mean any, changes to your health routine. Okay? Now, if you're ready for real talk, real change, and real results, go ahead, hit that like button, drop those comments, and subscribe so you never ever miss a new episode. And wait. Be sure to connect with me on social media. Just look up Nurse Coach Smith. All right? Now, let's get into it because your next level is waiting. And homegirl, that girl at the next level, she not playing. So I need you to sit back, relax, and let's jump right on in. Hey, girl, and welcome back to your safe place to heal, grow, vibe, and reset. Okay, so first of all, first things first, we got to do a shirt check. Very black, very proud. And you know I love to empower my black people. So yes, I love my shirt. Of course, like I say every week, love, love, love my shirt. The next thing I gotta say is I appreciate you all. Number one, I appreciate you all for watching, for tuning in week after week. I appreciate all the love that I received from last week's episode. I got tons of messages, tons of calls. Everybody was checking in on me. I will say that I went through my cancer scare kind of in a little bit of a quiet place. Only my inner circle knew. So listen, releasing that on this podcast has been amazing for me. So much people are like, "Oh, I'm sorry I couldn't be there for you." And it's like nobody knew. Don't worry about it. But I appreciate everybody for all the love from last week. And next, I cannot forget to tell you guys, please, if you are watching this, subscribe to the channel, like, put a comment below, and do not forget to turn on your notifications so that you know every time I drop a new episode. All right? All right. So I do feel like the last two episodes were a little heavy, and we're going to have tons of heavy episodes, but I wanted to kind of, you know, make it a little lighter these next couple of weeks. So we are starting a three-part series, three parts that I am calling You Are Not Moody, You're Hormonal. Yes, girl. We are going to be talking about a woman's cycle and the things that she goes through over her lifetime. So we're going to talk about the 4 weeks in our menstrual cycle. And then we're going to talk about perimenopause and menopause, right? We're going to talk about what we should be expecting in each phase of our cycle, what we should be expecting in perimenopause, and what we should be expecting in menopause. People often say women are, especially black, angry black women, women are so moody, and you too sometimes feel like you're all out of whack. I think that this episode is going to be super duper important because it's going to teach you more about yourself. It's going to help you to identify things that's going on in your body so that you can act accordingly during each part of this cycle. So the truth is our bodies go through real shifts And we deserve to have an understanding of the shifts that's going on in our body. Knowing your cycle helps you to plan life and not just react to it, right? If you know that this week is a week that you're extremely moody, maybe there's more that you need to do for yourself in that week so that you can show up appropriately to the outside world and to people that you care about. All right. Knowing your cycle helps to show up for yourself in a different way and to be more compassionate to yourself, right? It helps you to make better decisions for your mind, for your body, for your spirit, right? You know that if you're having a week that is a high energy week, then for your body, maybe you can do more movement that week. Maybe instead of exercising for 30 minutes, you can throw in an extra 15 minutes, right? So knowing your cycle helps you make better decisions for your mind, your body, and your spirit, right? Knowing your cycle and knowing the changes that you're going through throughout a month span, and when you get to perimenopause and menopause, it supports healthier relationships for the healthier relationship with you yourself and healthier relationships with people around you, like your spouses or people that you live with or your children or when you go to work, like how you show up and how you can do things slightly different depending on the week and what your hormones are putting you through. Because let me tell you, you are not moody, you're hormonal. Okay. Um, Knowing yourself will help you recognize how stress, your mood, and energy are all connected, especially to those crazy hormones that we have that's shifting us and bouncing us up and down. All right. Knowing yourself is basically taking back your power. And that's really what this podcast is about, right? Getting to know yourself more. I come on here and I'll teach you about very blanket statements of things, but really you really got to learn to tune into your body more and make decisions for your body depending on how you feel. Okay. All right. So my question to you is, in the winter, do you show up with pom pom shorts on? No, right? Because you understand that winter months are colder, you understand that you need to prepare differently, right? You need to put on some long sleeves, maybe some long johns underneath those long sleeves. You need to have on a jacket. You may want to wear boots and not sandals, right? So that you can be prepared for that weather. This is exactly what this series is doing for you. It is preparing you for each part of your cycle so that you can get through it the best way you can, and you can live a life that is more intentional and more connected with the things that you're going through on a week to week basis. So let's jump into it. I think I've explained the importance of this episode enough, right? So the first thing I want to talk about is debunking period myths. All right, I got three that I want to just debunk. So the first one is, it is normal to bleed for 7 to 10 days. It is not. Do you hear me? It is not normal for a woman to bleed for 7 to 10 days. Okay? A normal period should last no longer than 5 days. Now, if you go into 6, 6.5, maybe a little touch of 7, I wouldn't go crazy. But if you're bleeding well into 8 days, 9 days, 10 days, we have a problem. Okay. So some of the reasons why you might be bleeding longer than 7 days can be stress. We did a whole episode on stress last week. We talked about how it affects the reproductive system, the shifts in the hormones. So stress can be a reason. Birth control can be a reason, whether it's pills, IUD, all of those things can shift the length of your period. Hormone therapy. So if you're on hormone therapy for endometriosis, thyroid disease, or some people are on hormone therapy to treat breast cancer, that can also make you bleed a little longer than the 7 days. certain medication usage, right? Anticoagulants. So what anticoagulants are, they are a medication that prevents your platelets from clumping up on top of each other. The job of the platelets is to clot when you get like a cut, and it does that by clumping up on top of each other. Some people are on medication that prevents the clumping of that for more reasons than one. If you're on a medication like that, it could put you at risk for bleeding longer. Your NSAIDs, like your ibuprofen, your gabapentin. I'm not sure if gabapentin is an NSAID or not, but you're like Aleve, for sure Motrin, right? Those type of things can make you bleed longer. Antidepressants, steroids, these weight loss drugs, chemo drugs, all of that can make you bleed a little longer. Breastfeeding. Breastfeeding is another thing that can make you bleed a little longer. When you have a baby, it takes a little time for your body to kind of get back to normal, especially when you start breastfeeding. So if you are breastfeeding and you're bleeding a little bit longer, don't be alarmed. PCOS, or something called polycystic ovarian syndrome, it's when multiple cysts grow on your ovaries, can cause you to bleed longer. Many Black women are going through fibroids, definitely can make you bleed a lot longer. Endometriosis, perimenopause. When you start going through perimenopause, sometimes you can bleed longer than the 7 days. Infections and uterine cancer. So, or cervical cancer. So if you are bleeding consistently longer than 7 days, please get to the doctor as soon as possible. It is not normal. Okay. Another thing I would love to debunk is it is normal to bleed so heavy that you have to wear a pad and a tampon. That is not normal for you to be walking around with a super pad and a super tampon. We are not supposed to bleed so much during our cycle. All right? This is going to shock so many of you. During a normal period cycle, you should not be bleeding more than 2 to 4 tablespoons. Okay? 2 to 4 tablespoons. So, what I believe, this is not a proven fact, but what I believe is diet has a lot to do with this. Okay? Me personally, when I was eating the normal standard American diet, I was bleeding a lot heavier and I was bleeding a lot longer. Now that I follow a primarily plant-based diet, I bleed maybe 4 days, and that feels like a lot. And if I wanted to, I can keep on the same pad, and it could be a regular one, for the 3-4 days. I do not bleed a lot, and I do not bleed for a long period of time. And I have friends who have tried a plant-based diet for a temporary period of time, or cut back on meat, or cut off meat altogether, and they too have recognized that their period is lighter, it's less days, they don't cramp as much, all of those things. So I am a firm believer in your diet matters with the amount of blood that you're bleeding, that's coming out during your cycle. All right. And certain health conditions can make you bleed heavier. Those fibroids, again, endometriosis, PCOS, hypothyroidism, and any type of bleeding disorder. All right. And the final myth that I want to debunk is it is normal to have pain that stops you from your daily activities. It is not normal to be in so much pain during your menstrual cycle that you can't work, you can't care for your kids, you can't clean your house. Like, if you can't do your normal day-to-day activities, you have a problem. Again, I believe, a firm believer, diet, but I would definitely seek the help of a GYN as soon as possible if you're having such painful menstruations that you can't do anything. That is not normal. All right. All right. So let's move on to the first phase out of 4 phases of your cycle. So a woman's cycle is 28 days. Again, very blanket statement. If your cycle is 29 days, no harm. right? If your cycle is 24 days, no harm, right? But general gauging, your cycle should be somewhere around 28 days. 4 days early, 4 days later is not a concern. All right. And the first phase out of those 4 weeks is called the menstrual phase. So your menstrual cycle starts with the bleeding, your actual period coming on. So in general, your menstrual phase can be 1 to 6 or 7 days. It could even be 5, depending on how long you bleed. Like for me, it may be 4, because in general, personally for me, I just don't bleed heavy and for a long period of time. So your menstrual phase is usually day 1 to day 6 or 7. All right. It's the first day of your period. Your body confirms that there has not been a successful pregnancy, which is why you bleed. And the uterine lining starts to shed. And that uterine lining is there to hold a pregnancy, to hold a baby. And once there's no confirmed pregnancy, that uterine lining sheds and you bleed. And that's what you see. All right. So your mood during this week has a lot to do with your estrogen levels. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about estrogen. Estrogen does a lot in the body, but I'm just gonna I pulled out a few specific things for this 3-part series that I think it's important that you know about estrogen. Okay. Estrogen is made mostly in your ovaries, all right? It helps to develop your sex characteristics. So, your breasts, your curves, your hair, all of those things that women start to get as they go from a little girl to a young woman, this estrogen is responsible for that. Estrogen thickens the lining of the uterus to prepare for pregnancy. It helps with ovulation and helps you get pregnant by thinning cervical mucus when it's ready. It keeps the vaginal walls thick, elastic, and lubricated. Now, that's important for menopause, okay? Um, it affects bone and muscle mass. It regulates your ability to focus. How many of us are in the thick of our periods and a lot of times we can't focus? That's because estrogen is usually very low on the first day of your period. It's usually at its almost just about lowest, right? Another thing that estrogen does, it's a happy hormone, and it also signals other happy hormones when it's at its peak or when it's high, right? So during the first week of your menstrual cycle, again, estrogen starts off at the lowest that it's going to be for the month. Okay? Um, but then halfway through the week, as your period starts to get closer to an end, estrogen does peak up a little bit. So you'll find that the first 2 to 3 days of your menstrual cycle, you may be irritable, you may have mood swings, you may have low energy, you may have you may be easily triggered, right? You may take a lot less nonsense those first 3 to 4 days. But as you get to like the fourth, fifth day or so, you start to feel a little bit better, right? You start to get a little bit more energy. And that's because estrogen is now starting to like creep back up slowly there. All right. So, some good herbs that I recommend during this first week to assist with your mood is maca, ashwagandha, hibiscus. I love hibiscus. I'll try to put a picture here of the brand that I use. If not, I'll definitely put it in the comments of hibiscus. I have hibiscus and soursop tea almost every single morning. Because of my history of my chronic illness, I make sure I get my soursop tea, and hibiscus is great, a mood stabilizer, anti-inflammatory. So I love hibiscus. Peppermint is also a good one. Red clover, raspberry leaf, valerian root is also really good for relaxation, and chamomile is also good for relaxation. Some aromatherapy that's good for the mood. We talked about last week lavender, eucalyptus, and frankincense. So I'm going to add jasmine oil to that, chamomile oil to that, sandalwood oil or incense. I love incense. Okay, so you could also use incense. So all of those things are things that you can do for yourself during that menstrual phase to assist in calming the mood, calming the irritability, calming the stress, calming anything that's going on that triggers you. Because remember, during this time, you're going to be easily triggered, easily frustrated, not really into people's nonsense, right? So, this may be a time of the month that you may want to spend caring for yourself a little bit more, doing a little more for you because you already know that you're irritable. All right. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what you should be eating during this menstrual phase, right? You want to focus on replenishing your iron. All right. You want to reduce inflammation, stabilize your mood, and support your low energy levels. So, some iron rich food is beans, right? Chickpeas, red peas, lentils, um, cannelli beans, any type, black beans. Try to get the beans in. All right. You want to try to get your leafy greens. And let me tell you something about leafy greens. Leafy greens are good for the whole month, any time of the month. Okay. Green leafy beans support estrogen levels a lot. All right. Um, so your spinach, your kale, your arugula, your watercress, your bok choy, your collard greens. And let me just say this, try your best to eat these things in its most natural form. Collard greens, what I love to do with a collard green leaf, I make it into a wrap. I spread some hummus on it. I put some quinoa in it. I cut up some peppers, some red onions, some cabbage, some carrots, roll it up like a roll and just eat it raw, just like that, right? So if you can get your food to the most natural state, the most unprocessed state, that's the best way to eat it. All right. Your green leafies, especially. All right. Another thing that you may want to eat during this time, nuts and seeds. So your almonds, your pistachios, your cashews, pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin seeds are amazing. Pumpkin seeds have zinc and magnesium in it, and it's essential for hormone balance, better sleep, and mood stabilization. So get your pumpkin seeds in. Chia seeds are also very, very good. You want to try to get some dried fruits in, apricots, raisins, prunes. I love to put almonds, pumpkin seeds, raisins in a bag. It's a wonderful snack to grab and go, okay, especially during this menstrual phase. All right. Quinoa, dark chocolate. Now, when it comes to dark chocolate, try to get the most unprocessed dark chocolate. Chocolate comes from the ground. It does come from a plant called a cocoa. I forget how it's pronounced, but chocolate does come from a plant, but we take it, we dump a whole bunch of sugar and a whole bunch of bad things in it, and then it turns into candy. So if you can find natural dark chocolate, that's good to eat. It's iron rich, okay? Tofu, again, you got to see how tofu works for you. Tofu don't work for me. Tofu makes me gassy. I'll be lighting up my bedroom if I have too much tofu, but it is iron rich and it may be a good source for you. It may not do that to you. The only way you know is if you try. Brown rice, all good sources of iron, okay? And then whenever you are eating iron rich foods, it's important to have some vitamin C with it because that helps with the absorption of iron. So, any type of citrus fruits like your pineapples, your oranges, is good to have during this period of time to help with the absorption of the iron rich foods. Um, Strawberries also high in vitamin C, tomatoes high in vitamin C, broccoli also high in vitamin C. Papaya is great at helping with soothing menstrual cramps. So you might want to have some papaya during this week. Pineapple, it helps to reduce bloating and eases inflammation. Another one that I love during this week is either previous to this week or this week in particular is grapefruit. grapefruit also helps a lot with bloating. So I love to have grapefruit around right before my period or when my period starts. That helps with bloating for me. You want to stay away from salty, sugary, and processed foods, right? It worsens your bloating and your cramps. Again, I said I believe diet has a lot to do with how our period shows up. Okay? All right, let's talk a little bit about movement. What type of movement should you be doing this week? This week, you may have lower energy than some other weeks, right? So I'd recommend that you do low energy exercises. And you know that your mood is a little bit lower. So you need to give yourself grace this week. If you're used to doing a 45-minute session, powering through it, never having an issue, but this week you feel a little lazy, you don't feel as strong in the gym or with your workout, know that that is okay. Expect that, right? So give yourself a little grace this week. But I recommend going for longer walks, longer brisk walks, um, swimming, yoga, hot yoga, Pilates, strength training, but using lighter weights, dancing, Tai Chi, hiking, stretching, right? Just as long as you're moving, it's all good. All right. And again, do not put too much strain on yourself during this week. But don't use your period as an excuse either, right? So you got to find a happy medium. All right, really quick, I want to talk about yoni steams, and I put it in this part because I do yoni steams at the end of my menstruation every month because for me, I like to create a little bit of a routine or a pattern so that I don't forget certain things, right? And it's just easy to just do it every month after the end of my period. But you can do it anytime during the month except when you're actually bleeding. It is not recommended to do a yoni steam when you are pregnant, when you are bleeding, when you have an IUD in, and if you suspect any infections, any foul smelling odors, any secretions that don't look normal, do not do a yoni steam. You need to head to the doctor. All right. But I love yoni steams, right? So, in general, yoni steams are not really supported by Western medicine that much. But on the holistic side, we really, really support the yoni steam. And it's a sacred and intentional practice for connecting with your feminine energy and for self love. So, it's important that you do a yoni steam. When I started out with yoni steams, I got this thing that looked like a basin, like a bedpan, and I put it in my toilet seat and I steamed right on the toilet seat. Now I have me a little stall, like a stool, like a yoni stool thing that I sit on, and I have a luxurious little purple gown. You know, I love to be in my purple. You know, it stands for royalty, the purple. And I sit every month and I do my steam. So what are some benefits of your yoni steam? It helps to release emotional trauma or stored energy in your pelvic region. So I'm a firm believer in soul ties, and when you have intercourse with certain people, you know, it definitely creates certain energy in your womb. So if you want to cleanse of that, yoni steam is great for that. It helps to regulate irregular cycles. It cleans and tones the uterus. And if you do yoni steams on a regular basis, you know this to be true. I'll just tell you personally, when I complete a yoni steam, and then maybe a few days later, if I have intercourse with my husband, my vagina is much tighter than it is previous to the yoni steam. So yes, it does tone your vaginal muscles a little bit. All right. I'm sorry, not the vaginal muscles, the uterus. The uterus. Supports postpartum healing. So even if you miscarried or you've had an abortion, you are still postpartum. And yoni steams help with the healing. Um, Yoni steams also increase vaginal moisture, enhances lubrication, and enhances libido. It reduces symptoms of imbalances like yeast infections, bacterial vaginosis, or even any weird itches or odors. Now, again, if you're having any weird itches or odors, go to the doctor before you do a yoni steam. All right, and make sure you don't need some antibiotics. All right, yoni steams have been known to also enhance fertility. So if you're having fertility issues, this is a good thing that you can do. But again, that should be done with other things like managing your diet, making sure you're seeing a doctor while you're having fertility issues, getting some hormone levels, getting a deeper dive. This should be in conjunction with all of that, not just I'm having fertility issues, let me do a yoni steam. No, you have to, talk to a doctor about that as well. I wanted to talk about the Yoni steam that I use. This is not a paid promotion. This is just me advertising for another Black woman because I love my Black women and I think we're powerful and we just need to start buying from one another. But I get my Yoni steam from Body by Tao. I don't know if it's clear in here. I will put her website. Maybe I'll put it across here. Body by Tao. I have been using her Yoni steam since I started doing Yoni steams, and I think it is really good. Again, Black owned. She makes so much different things herself naturally. So I'll probably do a whole episode on the products that I use for her. But Yoni steams, Body by Tao. If you're looking for a place to get your natural yoni steams that can be trusted, I recommend Body by Tao. Body Love by Tao. Okay? All right. Now, let's get into the second phase of our cycle. This is the second phase out of the fourth phase, out of four phases. Sorry. So, this phase is called the follicular phase, and it's usually about day 7 to day 14. All right. Again, a blanket statement. Everybody may be slightly different, and that's okay. All right. So 7 to day 14. So, what is going on with you now? Your brain releases hormones to stimulate your ovaries to mature an egg, right? Your body is starting to gear up for your ovulation period. Your lining begins to thicken in preparation for a pregnancy, right? Your uterus lining that was just shedded from your menstrual phase, the first 7 days, now it starts to thicken again, right? We're starting to get a new lining, waiting for a new egg to implant itself there and for you to get pregnant. All right. Um, your vaginal secretions also change this week. So, in the beginning of this week, you may realize as estrogen is rising that your cervical mucosa or the secretions coming out of your vajayjay is thicker, a little creamier. It could be white. It could be looking a little cloudy. So that's in the beginning of this week. That's very normal. As this week progresses and your body is getting ready for pregnancy, that secretion starts to look a little egg whitish before you cook the egg white. Like really like clear, sticky, stretchy, right? And that is very normal. So, what is your mood going to be like this week? This is the best week ever. If you want to do anything, this is the week to do it. All right. Estrogen is probably way up. Not probably. Estrogen is getting up there this week. And so you are the happiest this week than you are any time of the month. All right. Estrogen, I have it here in my notes. Estrogen reaches its peak and it continues to signal those other happy hormones. All right. So you're more likely to bounce back from something that's annoying, right? You're more optimistic this week. You're more confident this week. You have increased creativity and productivity this week. You're more willing to socialize and be involved in social events and to network, right? You have heightened libido, especially closer to that 13th, 14th day. All right. So, what should we be eating? You want to focus on the rising estrogen level with those green leafy vegetables. You want to support estrogen with those green leafies, okay? You want to provide energy for workouts. So you may want to have something that's a little more carby. And then you want to try to balance your hormones. So what type of food should you be eating? You want to eat lean protein. So we'll stick with the lean protein. If you can stay away from animal products, I do recommend it. But if you cannot and you're not there yet, that is okay. Lean chicken, so your chicken breasts, right? You want to try to have a little more fish this week, eggs, tofu, and your beans. You want those complex carbs to support that high energy. So your complex carbs includes your whole grains like your quinoa, your brown rice, your wild rice, oatmeal. This during this week specifically, I love overnight oats. Okay, I make it with some almond milk, your oats, of course, some chia seeds. I grate some nutmeg. I put a little cinnamon. I put a little vanilla, a touch of maple syrup to give it a little sweetness. I put some raisins in it, and I push it in the fridge, leave it, and grab and go in the morning, and it is so yummy. Okay. Um, you want to have some fruits and your veggies this week. Again, um, your green leafies are the best. And the green leafy is what supports that estrogen balance, right? It stabilizes the moods. You want to get some healthy fats in your avocado. I make guacamole if it's not once a week, maybe twice a week. Me and my husband are always eating guacamole. That healthy fat is so very important. And then you want to get your seeds, your chia seeds, flax seeds, all those seeds, get them in. And you want to get your nuts in as well. We already talked about green leafies. You want to try to have some cauliflower, cabbage, broccoli, Brussels. All those things are good. This week, you want to avoid sugar, caffeine, and alcohol. You want to avoid those every week, but this week in particular, okay? Movement. You have tons of energy. So instead of doing a 30-minute workout this week, maybe you could push it to 45, maybe an hour, right? You want to do your HIIT, your high intensity interval training is the best week to do it, right? Your cycling, cardio, circuit style strength training. You want to add heavier weights this week. Sprinting, jogging, running, jumping rope, all of that you will be great with doing this week. All right. Before you do any high energy workouts, though, make sure you are warming up your body, especially as you are. I don't like to say getting old. I like to say as you're becoming more seasoned, those stretches are so very important before and after a workout. Okay. And make sure you are hydrating yourself. All right. All right. That is going to be it for this episode. Next week, we'll talk about what's happening in weeks 3 and 4 of your cycle. And then the following week, we'll talk about perimenopause and menopause. All right. So before you go, I'm going to give you a call to action. This call to action is going to be so very simple, not much of anything, because we have 2 more parts in this series. So, you got to journal. Journaling is non negotiable. But here are some questions that I want to give you when you're journaling. And you can answer this if you want or not. You can just journal in general. But how do I usually feel during the first week of my cycle, emotionally, mentally, and physically? The next question is, how am I currently supporting or neglecting my body's needs during menstruation? All right. And how can you more support yourself? Now that you know what you know, how can you better support yourself? Now that you know, I'm not going crazy. I am literally just moody because of the drop in this estrogen, right? How can you better show up for yourself when you have your cycle, when you start your menstruation? And then, how do I usually feel after my period has gone away, emotionally, mentally, and physically? All right. Another call to action that you can do this week is to start tracking your cycle and your mood. Wherever you are in your cycle now, where are you? How have you been feeling? Even if we didn't go talk about, even if you're in week 3 or 4 and we didn't talk about it yet. So what? Just journal or just jot down how it is that you are feeling and jot down how you feel from week to week. right? You want to try your best to gain insight into your own behavior, your physiological cycle, and your mood fluctuations. What is going on with your behavior? Where are you in your cycle? Is your mood high? Is it low? Is it up? Is it down? Like, what is actually happening? Okay. All right. So this episode is coming to an end. I hope this was a little bit lighter for you. I feel like it's a much lighter episode than the past two. Listen, please share this episode with your auntie, your mama, your sister, your cousin, any Black woman in your family. Share this episode. It is time for us to start to get to know our bodies more and to be more in tune with our bodies and not just living day to day on a day to day basis, right? We need to be more prepared so that we can be more successful in every and anything that we do. So I hope that this episode has served you. Do not forget to comment, like, share, subscribe, and put on your notifications. And do not forget to follow me on all socials at Nurse Coach Smith. And if you have any questions, please drop the questions in the comments down below. And if they're personal, it's all good. Send me an email at thehealthyhigh podcast@gmail.com. Until next week, take care of yourself, sis. Love you. Peace out.